right now, I want everyone to know that we'll have pinned to the top over on our social account a spot for you to make a donation or send a prayer, some positive vibes, whatever you can towards Jay's family because they still got a long road ahead of them. Of course, I think by now everyone in wrestling knows the story.
Yeah.
Tony, I don't know that you saw last night, but even on WWE SmackDown, they had performers wrestling with them boys armbands.
Uh-huh.
Michael Cole acknowledged it even on the Friday broadcast.
Yeah.
And then like Top Dollar in a backstage pre-tape talked about how he's not scared of whoever they're feuding with because where he comes from, them boys
Mm.
mask up and tell you to reach for the sky, boy. And
Yeah.
it's like, man, it's so cool that this is a team that never even graced the WWE stage, but
Mm-hmm.
universally loved, universally respected, not just for what they did in the business, but the way they lived their lives and the way they love their families. And I don't think that we can spend enough time today talking about what a phenomenal impact Mr. Briscoe made in wrestling in and out of the ring.
Yeah. I I kind of was in the midst of when this all went down, uh, kind of like well, Jeff Jones and I were driving to Fresno,
Yeah.
and when Jeff got the call, Jeff was very close to the family, so we kind of like were the first to find out because his mom called Jeff Jones, and so it really obviously knocked the wind out of our sails. Jeff more than me because Jeff was very close to them.
For decades.
Yes. And I'd only known Jay and Mark for not that long, but they were the type of guys that even though you didn't know them for that long, you quickly became very friendly with them and enjoyed it. And listen, there is no doubt their matches they had, especially with FTR after we purchased Ring of Honor, are some of the greatest tag team matches I'd seen in decades.
They'll live forever.
Yeah. I mean, those guys were just, and I think about the family, and I think about obviously his two daughters and
Yes.
his brother Mark and his wife, and
His brother had his birthday the very next day after the
yeah,
accident.
isn't that
And
something? Yeah.
that's what sucks, man, because now I just feel like forever that whole family, when they think about, the holidays, they'll think about, oh, this was dad's last Christmas. And I
Yeah.
mean, whenever Mark thinks about his birthday, I'll think
Yeah.
about his brother. And
Yeah.
it's a real tragedy and it puts a lot of perspective. I hate to be that guy, but I think sometimes, Tony, we all get through life and we get focused on our haves, but more importantly, our have nots. And we start to stress out and take for granted some things that are right in front of us. And this sort of brings clarity to some of that stuff for me, where it's like, hey, in the scheme of things, who gives a shit about this part of work that's a stress, or maybe this
Mm-hmm.
personal stressor with a friend or family member, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe some of you are stressed out about, oh, I got this bill, or
Yeah.
what might happen with my promotion, or whatever it is.
All right.
And then you see this, where my man picked the girls up and was taking them to cheerleading practice, and then he never came home.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, in the scheme of things, is any of this stuff in my life that I'm kind of stressing about right now important at all? And the answer is probably not.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I want us to honor him by being better to our family, being more present, not taking things for granted. And I just think that this is one of the more sobering deaths in wrestling. Unfortunately, there's been a lot where you take a look and you say, well, that guy probably shouldn't have been doing this or that. But nobody could ever say that about Briscoe here. My goodness, this is
Yeah.
just not fair, man.
Right. First time I saw him perform was when you and I and a group of us went to Madison Square Garden. You remember that
Yes, I do.
during WrestleMania weekend?
Yes, I do.
And of course, Matt Schiavone was there, and he knows everything about
Yes.
wrestling. And he was explaining to me, these are the Briscoes, and I went, like Jack and Jerry Briscoe. He said, no, 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 not at all. And I remember watching them, thinking, boy, these guys, them boys, as they came to know, can really, really go and get it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, they're unbelievable tag team. So anyway, deepest sympathy, and as you said, there is a way for you to help out the family here on WHW.
Yeah, I don't mean to betray any confidences, but let me just say this too.
Mm-hmm.
There's been lots of rumor and innuendo from really good sources that Tony Khan is who we thought he was, and he's
Mm-hmm.
going to do the right thing by that family as well. And I don't think that he would necessarily want anybody to know that information. And
Yeah.
I
Well.
know that it's not your place to talk about it, but I will say that for all the criticism that gets thrown around and at Tony this and Tony that,
Yeah.
when the chips are down,
Yeah.
he's a dude, man.
Well, Tony is very demanding, a boss, and it makes at times the week very difficult. But listen, wrestling has always been difficult behind the scenes.
Yes.
There's never been easy. There's never been easy. So Tony can be very demanding, as a boss can be, but because he is such a great person and such a genuine person and loves the wrestling business and takes care of his people, it's
Mhm.
worth it working for him. It's worth a lot of the stress that we go through getting a show on, because of the person that he is. So, yeah, I know a lot of people, give Tony a hard time, but the people who give Tony a hard time, basically, online, are, as human beings, not worth a fuck.
Well, here's the thing. I appreciate you saying that, but at the same time, they don't know him.
Right.
And so, I think sometimes people misuse or misunderstand or misinterpret the meaning of the word ignorant, but they're ignorant in that
Yes.
they don't know Tony
Yeah.
and they don't know some of the principles involved here. And I don't know.
Yeah.
This is a tough one, man. And,
Hmm.
like you said, I didn't know the Briscoes that well. I mean, I think I had met Jay maybe 5 times,
Right.
but I've got, pictures of the first time I met him, I had my daughter with him, and they said, "Hey, man, let's get a picture with your daughter." Jeff Jones was there, and it was so great.
Yep.
And then, of course, when we started putting together our little event in Nashville last year, I knew what I wanted for the main event. But the very next call was to our personal friend Dan McDivitt, and I said, "Hey, man, can you help me book Jay and Mark?" And I mean, they were just one of the, if not the best tag teams of the last 20 years. And I knew that there was a chance we could get them on the card. I don't think at the time it was public knowledge that Tony had signed them, and even I didn't know that. So either way, we got it blessed, we got it approved, and we were lucky enough. And the only show I promoted, maybe the only show I ever promote, besides Ric Flair in the main event, the Briscoes were the next act I reached out to, and I was just thankful that I got the opportunity to work with them and have them on the show. And my mom, of course, loved she's not a big wrestling fan, but
Hmm.
she loved the show. And then afterwards I asked her, "Hey, what matches did you enjoy?" "Well, it was nice to see Rick, but boy, them boys in the masks and that cowboy match," because she didn't know anything about wrestling. So the Von Erichs came out wearing cowboy hats, and she's
Yeah.
like, "That cowboy match, not the Cowboys, but the other guys,
Mm.
well, they were kind of scary, but they were good." And of course, that was the Briscoe.
Right.
So shout out to his family, man. And listen, he based on everything you've read about Mr. Briscoe this week, more than anything, he loved his family, and I hope that we use this as maybe a teachable moment and put some things in perspective, and maybe we're going to work on our relationships with our family. I think
Mm.
that'd be a good way to honor his name and legacy.
Very well said.